Right, so Kemi Badenoch, the business secretary, had the luckless joy of trying to sell Rishi Sunak's net zero policy, taking a torch to the planet to the British public on the media rounds this morning. And for somebody who had reached her peak by hacking Harriet Harman's laptop, we shouldn't be especially surprised to find politics basically evades her. Though, of course, that doesn't stop some of the right-wing rags referring to her as a rising star. Though that bright speck you see on the horizon isn't so much a star ascending into the heavens, it's more likely to be next door's field on fire due to climate change. Oh well, let's hope there's no livestock in it. By the time that barbecue is finished, the farmer might find himself then liable for the meat tax after all. Anyway, the rising star set herself up for her own 7 binfuls of stupid on Sky News this morning, speaking to Jane Secker, who put it to Badenoch that these changes, they don't really help the poorest in society. A lot of people would argue the poorest in society aren't fretting over when they're going to replace their car because the poorest in society don't drive in this country. Well, that's certainly a valid point. Not everyone can afford to. Cars are expensive to buy, expensive to run, the tax, the insurance, the maintenance, the ever-increasing price of fuel. And frankly, the poorest in society have enough on their plates trying to find food to, well, put on their plates. But not to worry. I'm sure there's a solution to this problem, isn't there, Kemi? Do tell us what you think. Well, what do you say to this? Well, this is what she said. She said, "I'm sorry, Jane, but that is a ludicrous statement. If you step outside of London, come to my constituency, you will find the poorest in society drive because they live in a rural area. What you said is actually quite astonishing." Is it though? No, I don't think it is. The poorest people are the ones queuing up around the corner to the food bank. They're not queuing in cars. The poorest people are the ones who will have walked there, or if without choice, caught a bus if it's that far away. Hopefully they had enough cash for that though, otherwise they're in for a heck of a walk. They're 7 times less likely to have access to a car actually, and only a third of the country actually even drive at all, Kemi. Frankly, I should be astonished that you're actually anywhere near government with an attitude like yours. You're clearly as thick as mince, not on top of your brief, haven't got a clue about the real world in this country, and aren't these politicians always the ones complaining about being aggressively interviewed and interrupting when they're trying to say something, when actually the shoe was very much on the other foot here? But actually, when you remember 7 bins Sunak is running the country, Badenoch spouting something equally as bonkers and out of touch trying to defend it, shouldn't really come as a massive surprise, such as the level of talent on show in that party, where IQs are measured in double digits, common sense is a sacking offence, and unless Sunak or his family can make some money out of it, he doesn't want to know. Certainly true that rural areas have weaker transport links than more populous urban areas do. I live in West Cornwall. I know a thing about remoteness and public transport lacking, or issues or lack thereof. But does Kemi Badenoch herself really? When was the last time she took the bus? Her constituency is Saffron Walden in Essex. Certainly rural Essex definitely is, but there's no escaping the fact that your patch does have good transport links into and out of London, as you would expect. Especially when you consider that the single biggest employer you represent as the local MP is Stansted Bloody Airport. Being rural Essex with those close London links, I think your idea of who the local poor people are might be rather relative too, insofar as it is an inordinately expensive area to live in, with the average 2-bed property, according to a bit of snooping I did on Rightmove today, 2-bedroom property pushing £500,000 in Saffron Walden. Now, I'm sure there must be council and social housing there too. Genuinely, there will be poor people, as there are in every affluent area around the country. But being rural, with a lower population density, it'll be less prevalent than more urban settings. The point is, your own constituency isn't likely a very good candidate to measure national relative poverty, national relative levels of concentrations of poor people, the poorest people in society, degrees of being poor in relation to car ownership, and with the transport links you have, many people simply won't need cars there where you live either, or where you represent either, or at least didn't before even buses got priced out of their reach, and well, that's if they turn up these days as well. Badenoch also got questioned about those same poor people whose cars they apparently drive that don't really exist, in relation to boiler upgrades too, that they now won't get because their landlords won't now upgrade them. Sunak's policy on this pushed upgrading to heat pumps back to 2035, but also announced there would be exemptions for the poorest. But that can look kind of sinister too, can't it? Since they are more likely to rent and less likely to own, how many of these people would genuinely be affected as far as renter versus home ownership amongst the poorest goes? Are housing associations and councils going to be made to upgrade, or are they going to be exempted because their tenants happen to be amongst the poorest in society? Is that not the case? And Can tenants then expect a rent increase to pay for the therefore enforced upgrades that will be coming from their housing associations or for the councils, whether it comes sooner or later, because that becomes a moot point at this point. Surely, from their perspective, it's just a matter of timing. It's going to come anyway eventually. Either way, it is lose-lose for them. Badenoch got asked as well about whether Sunak is just prepared to let the planet burn so he can appeal to a certain sector of voters, those climate denialists, maybe win himself a favourable column from Andrew Neil in The Fail, and Badenoch had put to her the words of Zac Goldsmith, the former Tory MP and International Environment Minister, who said, "This is cynical beyond belief. The Prime Minister is pretending to halt frightening proposals that simply do not exist. He's doing it to turn the environment into a US-style political wedge issue, something the UK has avoided all my political life. Sunak is chucking the environment into the political fire purely to score points. That is reprehensible." That's from Zac Goldsmith. That's from a Tory peer, as he is. That's pretty gut-punchy stuff, isn't it? What was Badenoch's response to that, then? Ignore him because he's rich. Well, he's not as rich as Sunak, so if wealth is a reason not to trust him, surely we should trust Sunak even less. Well, Badenoch said, "I fundamentally disagree with what he has said. We are listening to the concerns people are raising with us. Most people in this country don't have the kind of money he has. We have to think about what people can reasonably afford." Have you, though? Have you ever done that? I don't think so. Tories listening to the concerns of the poorest who don't vote for them and think they all suck. You've listened to them so hard that Sunak announced all of this in a hurried last-minute public announcement that came hard off the back of Liz Truss taking a swing at him in her own mad public announcement. Honestly, you could get more intellectual and informative value from listening to the white noise coming out of an out-of-tune radio than listening to Kemi Badenoch. Her attitude was one of hissing and spitting at whatever Jane Secker asked in the way of questions sent her way. She might as well have just made those sounds to go with it. It was a multi-car pile-up of an interview, and it doesn't matter whether they were petrol, diesel or electric, they're all scrap now. A charmless, cold, incompetent response to what was an insane speech that will probably send the Tories into a polling freefall. It's also not helping her personally because, bear in mind, as the business secretary, she's supposed to be all about saving jobs and providing security for workers. Yet Sunak's U-turns on this provide none of that. Car makers, for example, are up in arms because just last week they were given reassurances about the move to ban petrol and diesel cars, and yet now that's been pushed back 5 years. Complete disarray, and the Burke Badenoch defends that. She's had one tilt at a leadership race, at trying to become Prime Minister, leader of the Tory party herself. You can imagine if she'd want another, then being flaky over something so politically stupid as this, well, who's going to be tempted to back her in the future? When arrogance was dished out, Badenoch was at the front of the queue. A pity she didn't join the queue for when brains were dished out as well. This government is the most talentless bunch of chancers I've ever witnessed run in this country. We need an election now. No bones about that. And if this Sadak party wants any hope of re-election or even survival and not face absolute annihilation at the next general election, they need to bin Sunak as fast as they possibly can. It doesn't matter which one he goes in. You've got 7 to pick from. Just pick one. Thanks for watching. I hope you found the video useful. Please like, share and subscribe if you did. More content up daily. And do share your thoughts on this in the comments below. Have your say and be part of this conversation too. Meanwhile, here's another video recommendation where Badenoch would probably call her greatest achievement that CPTPP trade deal to replace the one we had with the EU. But there's issues with that. It's nothing like it's been cracked up to be. And I'll hopefully see you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.